Have you ever wondered how a single industry can completely change the future of an entire country? Well, today we're diving into Jamaica to see exactly that, how the massive force of tourism is working to close the country's development gap, one visitor at a time. And that's really the big question here, isn't it? Because this is about so much more than just pretty beaches and nice hotels. It's about this complex web of money, jobs, and infrastructure, and how all those pieces connect, or sometimes how they don't, to create real, lasting change for a nation and its people. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. Think of it like ripples spreading out in a pond. First, we'll look at the big splash, Jamaica's tourism engine itself. Then, we'll trace that first ripple of money and jobs. After that, we'll follow a second ripple, seeing how it connects hotels to local farms. And then a third that's literally changing the shape of the island. And finally, we'll step back and look at the whole picture, all the progress and the puzzles that are still left to solve. To really get what's happening in Jamaica today, you've got to start with tourism. I mean, it's not just another business on the island. For all intents and purposes, it is the engine pushing the country's development forward. So what kind of power are we talking about here? To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing, we need to look at the numbers, the raw economic force it brings to the table. Just let this number sink in for a second. 50%. Half, literally half, of all the foreign money coming into Jamaica, it's from tourism. That's an absolutely massive amount of economic weight for just one industry to carry. And here's what that looks like in cold, hard cash. $2 billion every single year. That's the fuel we're talking about, the stuff that powers that engine. It's a huge number. But, money is only one piece of the puzzle. The real impact, the one that people feel every day, is jobs. Tourism is the second biggest employer in the entire country, putting food on the table for about 200,000 Jamaicans. And what's so important to get here is that these jobs go way beyond the resorts. Of course, you've got the direct jobs, the hotel staff, the tour guides, but then there's this whole other layer of indirect jobs that ripples out. The farmers growing the food, the factories making supplies, even the bankers handling the money. It's a massive ecosystem. And that brings us perfectly to our second ripple. How does that $2 billion actually find its way from a tourist wallet into the hands of local communities? Let's check out a really amazing real-world example of this happening right now. Economists call this the multiplier effect. It's a fancy term for a really simple but powerful idea. A dollar spent by a tourist doesn't just stop at the hotel. Nope. It keeps moving, getting spent over and over again within the local economy. And the Sandals Resort Farmers Program is a perfect example of this in action. I mean, just look at the growth of this program. It's incredible. It started off so small back in '96, just 10 farmers. But over the next couple of decades, it just exploded into this huge island-wide partnership with millions of dollars being pumped directly into local farming. And the whole idea behind it was simple, but kind of genius. Instead of spending all this money on food from other countries, the hotel just asked, hey, why don't we buy it from Jamaican farmers? It was a game-changing decision to keep that money right there on the island. And here is where you can see that multiplier effect playing out step by step. The hotel makes this huge investment, $3.5 million for potato seeds. They give those seeds to local farmers. And just like that, those farmers have a guaranteed customer for their entire crop. It's a total win-win that builds a local supply chain from the ground up. So, this brings us to our third ripple, an impact that's not just about money, but it's something you can physically see and touch. Tourism has literally changed the landscape of parts of the island, from its airports to its nature parks. See, to handle millions of visitors, the country had to invest a ton in new infrastructure. But, they had to prioritize. Getting bigger airports and cruise ports built came first. Better roads for getting around the island, well, that came later. And that order of things wasn't always perfect for the locals. But on the flip side, all this development has actually had some positive effects on the environment. There's this realization that the island's natural beauty is the product. So that's led to more landscaping projects and even the creation of new nature parks, all to protect the very thing that draws people to Jamaica in the first place. Okay, so let's pull all these pieces together. We've got the money, the jobs, the local partnerships, the new buildings, but what does all this actually mean for the quality of life of the average Jamaican? And the evidence is pretty clear. If you're in a major tourist hub like Montego Bay, the industry has brought real tangible improvements.
For a lot of people, it's meant better jobs, more opportunity, and a higher quality of life.
But, and this is a really big but, that progress hasn't been spread out evenly. The benefits haven't reached every single corner of the island. Once you get away from the main tourist areas, you find that pockets of poverty are still a reality. It's a clear sign that the work is far from over.
And so that leaves us with the big question for the future. We've seen just how powerful these ripples from tourism can be. The challenge now, the puzzle to solve, is this. How do you make those ripples travel even further? How do you make sure they reach every community and that the prosperity from this incredibly important industry truly lifts up all of Jamaica?